Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic show. It's episode 597. I've got a great friend of the show, friend in general. I've got John Locke from Lockdown Design and SEO joining us on the podcast. We're going to be talking about all the late upcoming Google updates when it comes to SEO and search, and how that will affect WordPress and WordPress powered websites. My normal co-host Stephen can't join us this week. He had a prior commitment, but he will be coming back next week. So John, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers, the new ones?
Yeah, sure thing. My name is John Locke. My business is Lockdown Design SEO, which you could find at lockdownseo.com. I've been building websites since 2012 professionally, and I've been specializing in SEO for about the past 4.5 years.
That's great. And before we go into the main part of the interview, I just want to mention our major sponsor, and that's Costas. They provide a podcast hosting service. You need somewhere to store your audio files. You need somebody who can help you with, and it looks like Stephen's joining us, so we're going to have to redo this. Right, there we go. So, right. Sorry. Hi there, Stephen. How you doing? Rightio. Right, I'm going to do it again. Just give me we were just about a minute into it, Stephen, but right, so 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic show. It's episode 597. This is our interview show, and we've got a special guest, a friend, and a friend of the show. We've got John Locke of Lockdown Designs. So we're going to be talking about the upcoming Google updates that were supposed to happen this month, but have been slightly delayed till June. John is going to go through how all these updates will affect yours or your clients' websites. What are some of the key things you need to keep your eye on connected to these updates? So, John, can you quickly introduce yourself? You're well known, you regularly come on the WP-Tonic Friday show, but give us a quick intro to our new listeners and viewers, John.
Sure. My name is John Locke. My business is Lockdown Design and SEO, which you can find at lockdownseo.com. Been building websites professionally since 2012, and since 2017, I've been specializing in SEO.
That's great. And I've got my co-host, Stephen. Stephen, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the new listeners and viewers?
Yeah, Stephen Sauter from zipfish.io. We make WordPress fast by optimizing code on the site and on the servers.
That's great. So before going into the main part of the interview, I'd like to talk about one of our great major sponsors, and that's Costas. And if you want to get into podcasting, or you already have, or you're advising a client that's interested in it, you need somewhere to store your audio files. You also need somebody that can provide a cast iron RSS feed to all the major podcasting platforms like iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. You get this with Costas at an amazing price. I was with another provider. It was getting a little bit expensive. Costas offers just one plan level, or they do offer different plan levels, but they offer unlimited bandwidth and unlimited storage on all their plans. So you can start off with their basic plan. The others offer a heap of extras that are also really useful, but it's a great offer. And they helped me move over 500 shows to their platform. They were extremely helpful. The interface is really lovely and very easy to use. The previous provider's interface was a bit of a dog's breath, to be quite truthful about it. obviously you got used to it, but if you left it for more than a few weeks, it would be, I think you would have been confused. Costas is really, it's really impressive and easy to use interface. I can't hardly praise them more. I suggest that if you're looking to get into podcasting, you should really look at this platform, or if you're advising a client, this is a great platform. They also got a great affiliate scheme. So if you're regularly advising clients around podcasting, I suggest that you should approach them and sign up for their affiliate plan. So John, let's go straight into it. Now, there's been a lot of talk on YouTube, on Twitter, on all the platforms about these updates. Can you give us a quick, broad intro of what Google is proposing and how it might affect WordPress if you're a developer, designer, or installer?
Right. So late last year, early 2021, Google announced that they were going to be rolling out what was called their page experience updates, using metrics that they're already measuring in page speed insights and through the Chrome user experience. And this was originally slated to be rolling out in May. Now it is going to be rolling out June through August. And what specifically that they're going to be measuring is a couple metrics. One is largest contentful paint, which is the largest element that is in view in your browser when you first load a page. How long does that take to load? Good would be under 2.5 seconds. Another one is first input delay. How long does it take before the page starts loading? Under 100 milliseconds is good. And the third is cumulative layout shift, which is how much the layout of the page shifts from the time that it starts loading until the time that it's fully loaded. Less than 0.1 of the page. I don't, the CLS 0.1. I don't know what they're exactly measuring, but I can tell you what seems to result in that. And specifically, a lot of people are saying, I'm hoping that this will penalize sites that have a bunch of pop-ups and interstitials and things like that. I don't believe that that's likely to happen, because the way that the Google ranking algorithm works, it's not exactly the same for every single site. Big brands do have a little bit of favoritism in that. But what they have said is you will receive a slight boost. I don't know how much that means, but if you get all three of these metrics in the green, which you can measure at Page Speed Insights, then you should receive a little boost. What I can tell you is that you still need to have content, the right content on the page that is helping people get to the goal that they're trying to get to when they're typing in a search. And I can break down the three metrics that we talked about in a little bit more detail. And I can tell you a few things that I've done to try and get those in the green, if you'd like.
I think I really think that would be helpful. But before we go down that and also introduce Stephen as well, I just want to ask your opinion. Obviously, you brought up the importance of content and all the other normal factors. I just noticed in the kind of WordPress community, in the web design development pundits on YouTube and that, there just seemed to be a lot of anxiety and chatter about these updates to a slightly higher level than a full-blown like Penguin or some of the other major updates. You got insight what, especially around linking this to why you should not use page builders, why you shouldn't use Divi, why you shouldn't use Animator, why you shouldn't use even Beaver Builder. First of all, what's your thoughts? Do you think it's just been overblown? They don't fully understand what these updates are really about. What's your opinion about it?
Yeah, I've heard a little bit of that chatter, but I mean, out of those ones, probably Beaver Builder is the fastest. Probably Divi is the slowest. I've heard some people dogging on Elementor as well. But I mean, I don't anticipate that this is going to be a factor to where if you are in the orange or the red on these, and some of your other competitors are also in the orange or red, I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference. I think if you combine this with other factors, let's say that there's other pages that you're competing against, and they have content that matches what people are trying to do. They give people a way to have a conversion that Google, if they had a means of measuring that, like satisfaction by like this person did a conversion, if you have some sort of means of having that on the page, if those other pages are improving their design and their link velocity is, active, it's higher than yours, they're actively getting links. If all those things are combined, then you might lose some ground to your competitors. But in isolation, if you change nothing else about your pages, is this something that I think you should do? I mean, yeah, you should always be focusing on speed, visual stability, and things that are making this overall better. But you have to realize too that Google can change the weight on these factors at any time. For many years, it seemed for like 3 years, they were saying, you got to get mobile friendly. You got to get mobile friendly. And more sites became mobile friendly. That's good for their bottom line. If more people use the web and more people are using Google, the more people are spending money on ads. But to do that, had to be friendly for all people. The next thing they were starting to push was HTTPS. And people were saying, if you don't have it, you're not going to rank. Now, over time, the number of sites that were in the top 10 for any given result, most of them ended up being HTTPS. I think most of them are like that now. And that signal, at first people were hyping it up like, if you don't have it, you're not going to rank. But now Google basically said, if everything else is like even, that's kind of a tiebreaker. So they can change the weights on any of these factors at any time. And they do quite often. Do I anticipate this is but like a means of pushing people toward creating websites that are better for everyone overall? That's probably true. The one thing that you should be, not the one thing, but the several things that you should be working on is making a site that loads quickly. Largest contentful paint. Do you really need an image that is 6,000 pixels wide, 4,000 pixels high as your hero image?
Of course you do. Of course you do, John.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw it over to Stephen now.
Yeah, those 4K monitors, man. Got to make those images pop. Got to give them something to do.
Right.
If you don't have that 6,000 pixel image to load.
Yeah.
So like if somebody's like sitting here listening to it, what order would you put page speed stuff? Like I have, I'm working like crazy trying to get my startup going. SEO is something that I'm trying to do, probably not as good as I should be doing, creating new content around keywords and stuff like that. If I have 10 hours, should I keep putting time and resources into creating content, or should I spend that time optimizing my site? Like how should I rank that in priority? Because at the end of the day, like you have finite amount of hours and finite amount of things to pay attention to.
Yeah. If I had 10 hours, I'd put like 8 into creating new content or improving existing content, trying to make it match what Google wants to rank for a given keyword query, I'd spend the remaining 2 hours trying to improve the site and do little tweaks on this. One thing that I have noticed is sites that have a low cumulative layout shift, meaning from the millisecond that it starts loading until it's fully rendered. The ones that have a low cumulative layout shift right now seem to be ranking higher. That can always change. Some of the things that I've done to try and alleviate that is using system fonts, a system font stack to where there is no shift from the text, or having Google Fonts or Adobe Fonts or something like that come in and shift the layout, and making room for any elements that might appear above the fold, such as your header or any images or videos or things like that. And if you take care of those things, then pretty much that layout shift will disappear. The other thing is the largest contentful paint. One of the biggest things that I've done is, and I'm going backwards through client sites and redoing the code in this to make this possible. But normally in the past, like 3 or 4 years ago, I was using background images in CSS. But every time that the page loads, if you're using just background image, it loads that image every time. So one thing that I've shifted to doing is using a picture element with WebP first and then an image fallback, and then using CSS to simulate background cover. Those images can be cached, meaning that, and they can also be lazy loaded as well. So that means, for one, it's loading quicker. The space is there. It'll load as the page goes, but there's no wait. The browser's not waiting around to load that image. Yeah. There's other things I've done, like with YouTube, using Paul Irish's YouTube Light Embed or something like.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah. But those are all things that you can do to speed up your site. There's a million like little things like that you can do, you know, using caching, things like this, all deferring JavaScript. But if this is me, I'm doing content first and then using a few hours a week to kind of make these improvements. And then overall, it's improving your overall site.
When Google's looking at ranking sites, how much are they considering like bounce rate and like number of pages viewed on how they weight things? Because something that I think is interesting about page speed is that although Google's looking at page speed right now, like page speed has a huge impact, an even bigger impact on somebody's bounce rate off of their website. Yep. Or the number of pages someone views. And does Google look at those numbers, or are those numbers like not something that they weigh into?
Great question. Okay, so this is the thing that Google representatives have said probably like 4 dozen times. They do not use Google Analytics at all. Okay. The reason being, not every site has Google Analytics. Maybe half the sites in the world have Google Analytics installed. So they're not using that at all. That's for the webmaster and for you and to look at. But they don't use Google Analytics at all, and they've been very adamant about saying that. Now, bounce rate. John Mueller and Gary Iles, who are representatives for Google, have both said several times, bounce rate is not a good signal. I don't think that they've ever adamantly said that they do not use bounce rate at all, but it is a signal that can be gained. And what I mean by that is, if you can pay somebody on Fiverr to go on your site, or pay a bunch of people, or go on Amazon Mechanical Turk or anything like this and pay a bunch of people to go to your site, visit a couple pages, hang out there for a minute or 2 minutes, is that really a thing that is a good signal? It's the same thing as PBNs. If you have a bunch of links, you know, that's on the surface that looks like a good signal, but it's a really one that's easy to manipulate. And then people spend all their time trying to manipulate it instead of trying to make one that's actually good. Now, there's a clue to this. And that is that Google very recently said that they do collect data from Chrome for the crux, the Chrome user experience. That's a clue. They have a mobile browser in Android. They have a desktop browser in Chrome. There's better ways to determine whether people are satisfied with a page than using bounce rate. It's kind of a signal that can be gamed. It's a messy signal. It's one that they've kind of out and out said that it's not their first choice to use.
But they are using like some sort of metrics somewhere.
They're using some sort of metrics somewhere, but like, I mean, really, it's like you have to think about it. Like, if you are getting to your goal in one page, I mean, that's really what they're going for. Is measuring that.
Like maybe less page clicks is better. Like that might be a better user experience.
If reading and reading and reading in a site doesn't necessarily mean that you get to your goal. And I think that that's the thing that every webmaster should be thinking about is what goal are people really trying to accomplish when they Google this term that I'm trying to rank for? Are they trying to get information? Are they trying to complete a task? Are they trying to purchase a product? No matter what it is, you got to be trying to get them to that goal. And a clue to that is looking at what's currently ranking at the top. So basically looking for clues in what they're already favoring will give you a clue about what they think people are trying to accomplish when they type in a certain keyword.
Well, I think that we need to actually, Stephen, go for our break. Okay. We'll be back.
It's fascinating.
Stephen cannot be asking his next question. I think it's been a great first half anyway. We'll see you in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. Got my friend John Locke on. There's not much about SEO that John doesn't know. He's a real expert. I mean, a true expert on this. Back over to you, Stephen.
Something that I feel like is always confusing to me about Google search engine SEO type stuff is like the whole local aspect. Like that's like a really big thing people talk about, but what does that mean and what does that entail? I think like just linking this back to our page speed conversation, sometimes I wonder if people are talking a lot about page speed because it's an understandable metric and it's a metric that you can like run like Google will run a like check on your site and tell you how you rank. But like when somebody's talking about, oh, like we need to become, we need to like, we want to rank locally for when people Google whatever. No one really like, that's a lot more like ethereal. Like, what does that mean? How do I do that? And I feel like that's somewhere I've gotten stuck. Like, sure, if I am talking about how to clean somebody's house for COVID, let's say, that's a very broad term. And let's say I can rank across the United States for that term. I get that. But if somebody's looking for cleaning services locally, like how does someone like get into that market? Because that's the market like they really care about, right? And that's something that's always confused me. I just like don't understand it all.
Okay, excellent question. I'm glad you went there. So local SEO, you got to think about it like this. Also, when people are trying to rank locally, so Google is looking at what can we measure online to determine whether someone should rank locally for this. What is a measure? If you were going to measure through a machine who to rank for, whether it's cleaning service or HVAC or auto repair or whatever it is, how are you going to rank it? You're looking for signals at the local level. So one thing to remember too, Google said a long time ago that they want to rank big brands. They said this back in 2008. So hallmarks of big brands is they do things like try and acquire customers in different areas. So they're probably going to have all their social media profiles claimed. They're going to have a little bit of activity there. They're at least going to be claimed, right? So instead of just having a website and a Facebook page and that's it, you want to make sure that you are doing a thing that a big brand would do. You would have Twitter, Instagram, a LinkedIn company page, Pinterest, YouTube, have those things, and Instagram. and because you're trying to acquire customers on social media, right? Another thing that would be used to measure local excellence is you'd have a local phone number. It might be displayed in your page prominently. You would have an address that's consistent across the web. That phone number, the phone number, basically, if you understand what databases are, like that phone number basically is a primary key to your profile locally. So they're using that phone number that you have on your Google My Business and your website, and then it's connected to all the different things like your Yelp profile, your Facebook page, and they're looking at things like you have the same address, the same phone number, you're in the same business categories on all these different things. Google's also looking to,
just a quick question. So like the right way to like contextualize this phone number is to think of it like the email address and how that ties everything in people's CRM together. Google's using a phone number to tie it together. Yeah,
that's basically, instead of the email is a primary key in your CRM, the phone number is a primary key when it comes to your business profile. So, and another thing, okay, so we're talking about lead acquisition. If you're a real company, we'll just go with contractors because I have a lot of these on my roster right now. If you're a contractor and you're actually trying to get customers, Google's going to expect to see you in a couple different places. You're going to have a Yellow Pages profile, a YP profile. You might have a better business profile, but you're going to be expected to show up in certain places like Home Advisor, House, Angie's List. You're going to have profiles there because if you're a real contractor, you're trying to get customers in those different markets because that's where customers go to look, not just a website, not just Facebook page. So you're probably actively getting reviews on all these, but especially with Yelp and especially with your Google profile. But Yelp is also a very big part of this. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this. Yelp is a predominant site where people are going locally to look for any type of service. Also, Yelp has an antitrust suit against Google saying that Google is like unfairly competing against them. And you'll notice it in most local searches for any type of thing. Yelp is usually the #1 result, and then all the other third-party sites, and then the regular websites of the businesses. I don't know if that's because they have this lawsuit or if it's just because it's useful, a useful place to compare businesses, and they pull data from all different places as well. So you're more than likely going to be there. Now, I have had like businesses before say, we don't like to be on Yelp because we get bad reviews or whatever. People say this or that. I said, Google expects to see you there. So as in this particular case that I'm thinking of, like when we put them on Yelp, their rankings, both in the map and organically, went up for the things that they were trying to rank for. It's just one of those things that Google expects to see. Now, when we're talking about local as well, look at like the type of landing page that you're going to. And and again, it's a clue. You just look at and see what they're already trying to favor. A lot of the pages out there are not that well put together. They could have more information. Some of them are really good. Some of them have great design and great content. And they're a really appealing page. It gets people to where they want to go. So what I encourage people to do, especially if they're in a metro area and they're trying to hit like different cities, is to make distinct landing pages that aren't just where you take the city name and you change it on each page and everything else is the same. Try and make it unique. Have reviews from different customers that are in those cities, a little bit about the city, maybe a photo of a landmark in that city, but some of the actual services that you do in each one of these. Now, in different cities too, I've noticed there might be a little bit slightly different criteria of what Google wants to rank. So again, it's looking at the actual SERPs and seeing what needs to be there. But basically, if you have service pages that detail what you do, who you do it for, lists of different services, lay it out in a cohesive manner. Don't just put like, hey, we do this and we've been around for 25 years. Go into like a little bit more detail about it. I know it's really hard for people to write about stuff like that, but if you break it down into lots of context like that, you usually do okay. The last thing when it comes to this, Google has a memory of what's worked in the past. They're using these metrics to determine, like, hey, people seem to like this page, so we're going to push it up. And we see this pattern of how these pages are laid out, what's on them, the content that's on them, the secondary content that's on them. These things seem to work, and people seem to like this when they Google this in all different cities. So when we see a page like this, we'll say in Carson City, Nevada, for home services, we've seen this pattern work in different places. So when we see it for this business over here, we're also going to give it a big push. And then we're going to see how it does. And if it does good, we'll leave it up there. And if it does bad, then we'll bring it back down and we'll push something else. That's usually how local SEO goes too. Once you keep getting pushed, they might give you a push higher. But if you don't do good, or if the signals aren't right, then they might push you down again. But a lot of it is just testing like different ones, sometimes randomly, to find out how good they're going to do. So
now, when somebody's thinking about ranking in local SEO, is that just if somebody would Google contracting services or contractor services inside of a certain like IP address, geographic location, or is it always appended with the location? So somebody would have to, like, I live in Lafayette, somebody would have to Google Lafayette contractor services.
Oh, okay. So if you Google like contracting services in Lafayette, more than likely you're going to get like ones that are local to you, because it knows sorry, it knows from geolocation. Hold on.
Well, we're going to give I'm going to give John a chance to get a drink, because if he's recovered a bit. One of the factors, folks, that I've learned is directories. When it comes to national SEO, directories, business directories, online business directories really have no effect on regional or national, but they still have a relevance when it comes to Google, when it comes to local. There's a number of services that can help you get into all these online business directories. One of I wouldn't say it's the best, but one that has a good track record and a reasonable price is Moss Local, where you can put your business details on with a yearly fee. I think it's still a yearly fee. It will push your business details onto over 100 different business directories. Am I talking any sense there, John, or am I?
Yeah, I mean that's foundational work. I mean, you those things definitely do help. There's a lot of searches where nobody is really doing like high level SEO, and just having that will probably help you a ton. Back to Steve's question, if you Google contracting in Lafayette, it's going to give you
in Lafayette. Am I Googling the word in Lafayette, or am I just Googling that one? Yeah. Geographically located in Lafayette.
If you Google in Lafayette, then it's going to give you all 100% like local results.
Okay.
But if you just Google it by itself, maybe 4 or 5 of those results will be local, because it's not specifically sure. Yeah. The more I'm sorry to interrupt, John. We need to go break and end the podcast part of the show.
Are you okay to stay?
Yeah.
Are you okay to stay on for another 15 minutes? And that will be our bonus content, folks. You'll be able to listen to the bonus content on the WP-Tonic YouTube channel. Go over there and register as well. Give us a thumbs up. not only do I put those interviews up and our Roundtable Friday show, there's a host of other content which I regularly put up every month on the YouTube channel and only on the YouTube channel. So please do subscribe to it. So John, what's the best way for people to find out more about you and obviously learn more about SEO? Because obviously you're a total expert on this.
Well, you can go to my website, which is lockdownseo.com. You can also go to my YouTube channel. If you just search John Locke SEO or Lockdown SEO, you'll find it. So,
and I can't honestly stress, folks, if you're looking for a collaborator on a project, if you're an agency owner or if you are a business owner and you're looking for an SEO expert, I can't highly recommend John anymore. I've known John for a number of years. He's helped me on a number of projects. He really is a true expert in this area. So, Stephen, how can people find out more about you and what you are up to?
Head over to zipfish.io and run a speed test and see how much faster your website can be.
Yeah, and they've helped on the WP-Tonic site and they made a big difference to our page loading. I suggest that you go over there. We're going to wrap it up now. We'll be back next week with another great guest. We've got some great guests coming up in May and June. I think you're going to be delighted with the interviews that we have coming up. We'll be back next week. See you soon, folks. And do remember to log over to the WP-Tonic YouTube channel and see the rest of this great interview. We'll see you next week, folks. Bye. So, I don't know, I'm sorry to interrupt there, but we like to keep to 30 minutes. So, would you like to finish off what you were going to say, or is there something else you want to add until we get on to the next question?
I forgot what I was going to say, but we were talking before we came on the air. We were talking about like some of the other stuff that's coming down with Google. Now, they've gotten like 10, 15 years ago, you could just put, you could basically keyword stuff a page and Google would say, okay, that is relevant to this search if it's keyword stuffed. And it's got way more sophisticated since then through things like the natural language API, where they can basically, they're building like their own neural net to try and understand language. A couple of years ago, they had BERT, which is, let me look up exactly what this stands for. Bidirectional encoder representations from transformers. So basically they're understanding the context of words in the order of a phrase, like how it changes the meaning of different things. Well, they just recently, just a few days ago, introduced this thing called MUM, which is, hold on, let me look it up.
Oh, I like that. MUM. I like MUM. Yeah, MUM.
Yeah. It is multitask or multi-something unit. Oh, hold on, I'll find it. But basically, well, I find the thing. Basically, what it is.
So I think some of the factors people got to understand is they've got their basic technology, which is link building, bounce rate. The way I view it, John, is like a big, this is how I view it. It's like in Google headquarters, they got an enormous soundboard, that used to have the levers they could push up and down in a professional sound studio. And these are all their metrics, how they judge your websites, and they're always fiddling with them. So they're always pushing some of the levers up and some of the levers they're pushing down, and it changes from month to month. And then they've got these new technologies like artificial intelligence around word usage. Plus now they've got location, because most adult Americans or in Western countries have a mobile phone that's on you or near to you 24 hours a day. So they've also got that positioning information. So they've got two enormous new pools of data streams through their technology around language usage, and then location. Am I talking any sense there, John?
Yeah, that's making a ton of sense. For example, when they launched this BERT initiative, they basically invested like a ton into infrastructure, into new computers that would basically be able to handle the load of learning all this stuff. So this multitask unified model, the MUM, basically connects like all these different ideas together. It's basically if you're Googling one thing, it's connecting those ideas to different things. If you're trying to complete tasks, it can unify like different ideas and give you suggestions. And also this is in 75 languages. So they use Google Translate basically to take information from this stuff that's written in this language and apply it to this stuff over here. So it's getting really complicated. It's gaming the system is going to be pretty much increasingly hard to the point where you have to legit have the best page, the best site, and the best brand in order to win any of these searches in the future. You have to be in this category in creating the best content on a given thing in order to win. Gaming the system is going to be just too difficult to do. But again, you have to give Google signals that it can measure. Anything that happens offline, it really can't measure all that well. You have to give it clues online. So
over to you, Stephen.
I feel like that makes a lot of sense. Like, one, that Google's moving into this place where you can't like try to manipulate the data. Of course, that's like what they're trying to prevent. But because of that, then like we as people have to understand how machines work. Like, if you're an online company, you have a website, right? You have to give online signals to people. Just like if you are a brick and mortar store, you have to give signals to people that you're open or that you have a sale or signage or some sort of like indication. And in giving those signals, especially from like a local standpoint, how, like, something that we haven't talked about from local SEO is content. Like, is content still as important when you're talking about local SEO and ranking there? Like, if I have a landing page that says Lafayette, but then do I have to have, all these blog posts talking about unique and individualistic marketing ideas inside of the Lafayette area? Or does that not matter as much for SEO and just generally talking about, if I'm a marketing company, like marketing ideas inside of Lafayette, just trying to talk about these marketing ideas, having a landing page about Lafayette, is that enough to like link those two together?
Yeah, see, that's an excellent question. And I'm glad that you brought that up. So remember we were talking like just a few minutes ago about characteristics of sites that do well with people. It's going to depend on what industry you're in. Like some industries, it's going to matter. If you're like in web design or marketing or anything like that, you got to have a blog because that's a characteristic of sites that make people happy. So it's looking for the presence of that and content frequency. So certain types of contracting or certain types of services, like if you're like an auto body shop or something like that, you probably don't need to blog at all, because none of the other ones that perform well across the country, across the globe, most of those don't have a blog. If you're in something like certain types of contracting, like HVAC, or cleaning, those tend to have a blog. Other ones like landscaping or things like that, maybe they don't. So a good rule of thumb is look at what is working for the competition. That's something that I do like in these audits is look at the overall like pattern of what is working for like different sites or different pages. What are the characteristics of these things? And you can very easily start to see patterns over time. So that's one of the things, you know, if your competition, if all the sites that are doing above you don't have a blog and they're not blogging, then you could probably get by with not blogging. But if there's a fair number or the majority of the sites that are above you are blogging, then that's probably something you should be doing too.
So
I know. I'll go on. Off you go.
I was just gonna say, so I think the interesting thing about like blogging and stuff, or at least what I've been told, is that you just have to have better quality content and more of it, like than your competitor, and like that's how you can outrank somebody in Google. Maybe that's wrong. I don't know. But if you're on a local thing and nobody has blogs, so Google doesn't really care about a blog, and everybody has put their stuff on the yellow pages and all the content, like all this, and it's like, how do you outrank someone?
Can I answer Stephen's question and get your input? When you say about the blogging, it depends, Stephen, because it depends on the domain authority that you're trying to rank against and their link matrix. If you got a website that's got a much, and I'm going to ask John to tell us what domain authority is. If you're trying to compete for a phrase and the competitors have got a much higher domain authority, it is very unlikely, even if you double the length of the article, spend a fortune on it, it's still very unlikely that you're going to outrank very quickly those other websites. Now, if you're dealing with a phrase with the websites that you're competing with have a similar domain or a less of a domain ranking than yourself, it's really quite, I wouldn't say easy, but it's going to be very likely if you write something half decent and you present it to Google in the correct way, you're probably going to be ranked higher than those other sites quite quickly. Am I right about this, John, or have I just dug a bigger...
Kind of yes, but like there's like a little bit more nuance to it. So domain authority is basically a measure of the link profile. I think a domain authority is something that Moz uses, URL rank, and I can't, the other metric that Ahrefs uses. Majestic uses one too. It's like trust flow, citation flow. They have all these different ones. It's basically not how Google sees it, but basically it's a measure of your link profile. What I've noticed too, this is a weird thing when it comes to content and like ranking. So the answer to Steve's original question, let me answer that first. If you're creating good content and you're trying to rank against these other sites, there's more to it than that too. Google is really looking in local too. Like, are you on specific sites? If you're in web design, you got to be on UpCity and Clutch. Like, that's a must. But for anybody, there's different sites where they say, here's the top 8, here's the top 20, here's the top 21, like businesses in this category. So getting on lists like this in expertise, 3 best rated. I know in marketing, there's different ones that outreach all the time, like SEO blog. But getting on all these different lists where maybe your local community, they do like the A list, like they do here, or city voter, or the best of Lafayette. If you're on like one of these lists, then enough of those signals tend to work. I know back in the past, like being a member of a chamber of commerce was like a local signal because you get linked to from that site. I don't know that that's like as important for certain ones. Maybe not as important as it used to be, because again, it was just too simple to do that. But you know, getting words in the reviews that appear on Google and Yelp and these different places that indicate that you do the service that you say that you do, you know, all these things kind of add up into that. Now, when it comes to the blogging, if you're on a site that has a high authority and has a lot of links coming into it from places that look legit and not just like their PBNs, then if you have content that's pretty good or decent, it has a really good chance of ranking. This is a weird thing, like it happens in Google. It's like if your blog has some pieces of content that rank, the likelihood that you're going to have more ones that tend to rank well is going to be higher for whatever reason. Like once Google starts to trust the content on your site and it's all pretty good quality, then the chances that subsequent content is going to rank is going to be better. Now that content basically, it might earn links just on the basis of ranking high. People might reference it in their content and link to it just because it's ranking well. So then that piece of content, that blog post or whatever, you want to channel some of that link energy toward your most important landing pages. So find a way to link to those pages from those pages that are receiving a lot of links. That's basically what you're trying to do. You're channeling some of that energy. Yeah.
Give a tip that I'll give a tip to the listeners and viewers that are listening to this bonus content. Having a really good affiliate scheme. This applies to a service or a SaaS business. It's a really good idea in general, but if you just leave it for its own devices, where I found it's useful is that if you approach somebody and you think they could be a good affiliate and you say to them, any traffic that comes to my website that signs up with your affiliate link, I'm going to give you this special affiliate deal. But we also write a piece for you, a piece about us, specific for your website, and you won't have to pay for it, and we work with you and we'll pay for it and we get it all ready, and then you put it on your website and it will generate traffic and you'll make additional income. That goes down a treat, and it also builds links for you. Just sending out emails to people and saying, well, we'll pay for you to post our piece in 2021 just doesn't work in my mind. There's still loads of people doing it, so it must work to some extent. I think it's just probably a volume. They're just sending it out to thousands and thousands of different websites. What's your opinion on that, John?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. That's what a lot of link outreach places do. I know people who do link outreach, and you pretty much have to have content in order to do link outreach to places, because you're looking for people with, you know, something that's adjacent content to yours, where they mention something that you're trying to get ranked for. So basically you just shoot off a bunch of these emails and you might get 1 or 2% of them that agree to link, but you know, you're still getting links from categorically related sites. That's another thing too, like when people talk about a domain rating and ranking and stuff like that, it's more important, in my opinion, to get links from sites that are a direct category, like similar to yours or the same or very adjacent to yours. That's more important than getting ones from high authority sites, unless it's something like the New York Times, or, you know, when it's a followed link or the Washington Post, something like that. But having sites that are in the same category as you, linking to you, that's going to help so much. So any of those that you can get will help.
Well, just to finish off, I've got such mixed feelings about this, because I know you also invested a lot of time in this specific area as well. And I'll be interested to hear your views. You know, YouTube. I think it's become, it's either the second or third biggest search engine in its own right, isn't it? Second. And I've been putting more content in it. It's been very difficult to grow my subscription because one of the factors is I think the kind of content that you put on it and the size of audience that would appeal. But other people, even if you're in a niche and you don't get a large amount of people subscribe, it can still be very influential. But also how it affects, it's part of Google, isn't it? So
yeah,
I've definitely seen it affect my other parts of my SEO strategy by utilizing YouTube. What's your thoughts? Because you've spent a lot of time producing content for YouTube. What's your insights about YouTube based on this and how you think it fits in to the SEO world of 2021, John?
Well, a lot of times you'll notice in a Google search result that there will be videos on the first page. Might be a row of videos. Sometimes it bumps down to the second page even, but usually it's on the first. And they'll call it something like top stories or stories from around the web, but it's usually YouTube videos. Not usually a lot of Vimeo. It's usually YouTube because Google owns it.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, not a big surprise, but you know, video is easy because all you got to do is press play and you can watch the content instead of having to read it. So it's lower friction. So that's another way to show up in the search results of Google. YouTube itself has its own algorithm for ranking, and a lot of it's based on a few things, but basically it's like for each video, it's how the first 48 hours does, you know, how many people are watching it in that first 48 is going to determine for a large part how it does over the lifetime of that video. Also, how many people are watching, what percentage of the video are people watching. Shorter videos will tend to do a little bit better unless they're like highly produced, like really great content, because you want people to watch as much of a percentage of the video as possible. Any type of engagement like thumb up, comments, even thumbs down is engagement in YouTube's eyes. They're probably a little bit better if you get a thumb up, but any type of engagement like that, adding it to a list or, you know, anything like that is positive, and it shows that you're interested in it. And it's going to show you more videos like that, or it's going to bump up that video like when other people are searching content that's similar. One thing I have noticed too is like sometimes YouTube will surface channels that have been around for a long time, but all of a sudden it'll start pushing them. Maybe one video does good and it'll start pushing the rest of the stuff from that channel. I've noticed that recently. But basically it's, you want to put out stuff that people are interested in, that hooks them early, it keeps them watching. And YouTube also wants to push channels that produce content consistently, regularly, because it keeps people on the channel. If the longer that people stay on YouTube, the more ads it can serve. So that's what it wants to reward. So
is there a local aspect to YouTube at all, or is that just Google?
It really seems like there's not like a local aspect to it. I mean, at least
well,
like from what I've seen.
Can I just interrupt there? I don't think formally, Stephen, but I have another business that's around real estate, providing a service to real estate agents. And I was talking to a guest. I do another podcast in the real estate industry sector, Stephen. I had a guest last week and she has a real estate agency, a brokerage in Savannah, Georgia. And I think my geography's right. Savannah is in Georgia. If not, please, I apologise. I'm English. And she has used it. There's some big army bases, and American Air Force and big army, and I think the Navy's there as well. And she uses YouTube videos where she explains all the different factors of Savannah. And if you do a search in YouTube about Savannah, a lot of her videos come up, and she gets a load of people from the Army, Navy, Air Force that are thinking about moving to Savannah and buying a house. And they hire her, and they hire her team, Stephen. So yeah, you can use it for your local, but it depends if you're gonna get, if it's people moving out of state, or if you're in, and probably other factors.
That makes sense. Like, she's probably putting those titles in her video, like Savannah, Georgia, whatever. And so then somebody's Googling or searching on YouTube, Savannah, Georgia, something that relates to that title. So you have like that local aspect, because people are putting themselves in that local place. And why it's probably mainly out of towners looking for that, versus like more like true local, where somebody doesn't have to Google that name, where somebody in Savannah, Georgia is just Googling real estate, and YouTube's like, oh, here's a bunch of stuff that's related to your geographic region.
What I think you're asking, and I don't think they are, but John might put me right here, is I think what you're saying is, are they one of the factors for showing you their video suggestions is based on your IP location? I don't think they do that myself. Am I correct about it? I don't think that's come up at all, has it, John? That using...
I've never seen that. If you're searching, if you're searching for stuff locally, like those videos can come up usually in Google. If you're searching locally in YouTube, then it'll come up. But I've never seen evidence that just on its own that it's a factor. It goes because underlying YouTube, their main goal is to keep you watching videos. That's like the number one purpose. So whatever it takes to keep you on, it's going to do that. Because
I think.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think we'll wrap it up. We're coming close to the hour. I know you're busy with other things. But John, thank you so much for joining us. You have to come back. We have to do another SE show in the next 3 or 4 months. It's really, the hour's gone really quick, hasn't it? This subject is so big and it's so important. It will build your business or destroy your business. It's just the reality. So SEO and marketing in general for all of us in the web development design community is just a really important factor. We'll be back next week with another great interview. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.